Welcome to the Beau Leadership Group podcast. Today's show is about winning, and I once won an invitational tournament, junior tournament at Whitman College, first place. And the key to winning that invitational tournament is make sure they didn't invite that many people. So it's much easier if they don't invite a lot of really good players. I am thinking people out there need to acquire a taste for winning. Why do I say that? In the last few decades that I've been around, I've had my winning attitude whittled down a little bit. My grandfather, he was a champion fighter and wrestler, and he won this medal way back when he was 20 years old. He came over at 13 years old from Ireland, and he had to fight a lot because he had a funny accent. His mom made him wear knickers to church. It made him a pretty tough guy, and he ended up being the captain of the Oregon State wrestling team. And then on my grandfather's side, on my paternal side, he was a French Canadian tough guy, and he won tough guy competitions in a little town called Moxie, Washington, where they took their knuckles and they would like smash into a timber to see who could make the biggest mark. And they would take 6 penny nails, I think they were, with their hand and drive them into wood with their hand. Things I don't want to do today, and things that maybe show when winning goes too far, it can cause a little brain damage if you get wrapped upside the head a few too many times. There are times, though, when we need to develop that acquired taste of winning. And when you talk to billionaires, they talk a lot about winning. And I'm not saying that being a billionaire is winning. It takes a lot to be president of the United States, a billionaire, just in terms of the security it takes to have a normal life and the games you have to play to keep people off your back. And it may not be worth it for most of us, but it takes a little bit of winning just to stay alive, right? And the taste for winning, I think of it as an olfactory thing. So your olfactory is your taste and sense of smell part of your brain. So olfactory is for your smell. It's in the front of your head, and it's your nose is very close to your brain, right? And I don't think that's an accident. I think it's that you needed to win a few berries and a few good foods and sniff out the good foods from the bad in order to stay alive. And I think that's still true to a certain sense of smell. Winning the prize in early mankind meant that your food passed the sniff test. It helped me avoid bad tasting milk last week. What have you sniffed out that it's helped you win? I guess I already mentioned the tennis invitational. I spent a lot of time working on my game that summer, and it paid off, and I won. Took a lot of effort to be able to do that, and it took a will to show up every day at noon, even though it was 100 degrees out, and play. Today, we get to look at the acquired taste of winning. Little League or early gym class may have taught you that winning can be fun. My Little League coach used to take us to McDonald's if we won. It was really fun, including the 58 ways to spray a ketchup packet that we learned to do. Luckily, our first Federal Bank uniforms were red on top. Unfortunately, the pants were white. Let's face it, we are all battling to win. We're diving into something profound, acquiring a taste for winning. This isn't just about crossing the finish line. It's about you embracing your place as a leader, a winner, and someone who deserves the rewards of victory. And in the old days, you could call somebody a winner and it was okay. I have a feeling that someone needs to hear this. You are at war. In Christianity, some people say they are fighting the devil. That puts the devil in charge of your negative thoughts. And darn ants, A-N-T-S, where A-N-T-S is another negative thought, right? Another negative thought. There are good thoughts and bad thoughts, and you need to make a winning effort to win at getting good thoughts to win the war. You might have won more wars than millions in the world. Think about that. If you stay out of jail, eat healthy, avoid drugs that may lead to crime, etc., you've won. I've won some and lost many, many times. Ask yourself, do you feel like you belong in the winner's circle? It's a mindset, an abundance mindset. Some people say, if your heart is right, that you attract winning to you. Let's explore that together because I want you to win. And you deserve to create a sense of belonging and winning for others. That's what we do as leaders. You could do a drinking game today on how many times I say belong. I don't drink anymore. That's the way that I think that I win. It makes me more likely to get up in the morning on a Saturday and go fly. If I have a hangover, I don't want to fly. I say belong in this episode because helping people to follow your great cause and your great purpose, that's winning. Giving, belonging, and leading is winning. Leading means belonging in victory. Leadership is a calling to belong, not just to a team, but to the responsibility and joy of victory. When your team succeeds, you share in the applause. When they stumble, you share that weight, right? That's the sacred pact of leadership. It's not about standing alone and being in the spotlight. It's about creating a space where everyone feels they belong in the win. As I've often said, leadership is about inviting others to savor the taste of victory alongside you. It's hard to say why a supervisor can make employees more productive, but we know they do, right? And I think it is more likely when they make their employees or the people that are under them feel they belong. Think of the 1995 Chicago Bulls. Michael Jordan didn't win alone. He created a culture where every teammate felt they belonged in that championship huddle. But wait, the Bulls didn't win in 1995. And the Bulls in the 1990s were fun to watch, especially when they played my Blazers and Clyde the Glide and Kersey and Porter and Duckworth and all those guys on the Portland Trailblazer team. Two of whom are already deceased too early. But guess what else? Michael Jordan wasn't even in the finals in 1995. Unless you're a sports statistician, you might have missed that. Michael Jordan, it feels like he won the whole decade of the 90s. One of the greatest didn't win in 1995. And in 1995, I know this because Penny Hardaway shoes were what I bought that year because I got a deal from somebody who worked at Nike because my recreational basketball team had two players whose wives worked at Nike. And because Shaq's Orlando team with Penny Hardaway won the 1995 championship. I really love those shoes. Anyway, think of being live in person courtside and feeling that feeling you get when you attend an event and you're participating, you belong. Compare that to a virtual event by yourself alone in an unfamiliar hotel remotely. Now go to where we spend a lot of time these days in virtual meetings. What feels like winning for me is live and in person and courtside, even if my team loses. It's inconvenient to get to be in person sometimes. Being up close and personal with the A team, that feels like winning. But if you've never been to a game in person, you don't know the winning feeling of being there in person. Think about that virtual meeting where the connection feels distant and someone's always muted. Some people used to say this about a phone call. You needed FaceTime. You need to be in person so you can foster belonging. Can you foster belonging from a screen? It's harder. You as the leader should try really hard to make it feel warm and belonging like everyone's winning. To include everyone is also to prevent arrows from hitting the target on every leader's back. And you know, if you've led for a while, you end up with some targets on your back. Leadership thrives in presence and shared effort, in locking eyes and building trust. People want to see the light in your eyes. Bring people together in person when you can, but do not waste people's time because it can backfire if you're expecting productivity from people and they are being taken away from what they need to do. Psalms 34:8 invites us to taste and see that the Lord is good. As leaders, we're called to invite others into that goodness, into that sense of belonging through sacred and shared excellence. We talked about the excellence of Rolls-Royce last week. Let's reflect for a moment. You're creating a space like a Rolls-Royce cabin that feels like they belong in the shared pursuit of victory, and you are leaving them on the sidelines? No. Think about developing a taste for winning. Winning is acquired taste, and much like your first sip of strong coffee, it could be sharp and unfamiliar, maybe even overwhelming to some. They may criticize it. Some might at first feel bitter about it, and it gives you hot breath and bitter beer face when you drink the first beer, but it's an acquired taste. Speaking of taste tests, I used to do them. I used to do taste tests for ice cream. One time I did a taste test for Mubella, who was creating a robotic machine that made ice cream for people. If you went to Boston College a decade or two ago, you might have seen the Mubella machine in the cafeteria at BC. New England Ice Cream provided Haagen-Dazs quality ice cream, and my kids thought that was my favorite project of all time because they had a Mubella ice cream at their disposal in my office when they came to visit. And that was really fun. But I also enjoyed doing Coors beers taste tests because I got to pay people to drink different kinds of beers and they loved me. And they loved it at the local radio station because I placed ads with them. If you're from Portland, KGUN FM, where we would play it during Get the Lead Out, Led Zeppelin hours because Led Zeppelin fans love beer. My receptionist, she hated me because I got so many calls. Another time I felt like I was winning and I didn't even get paid. I helped a guy named Tal Johnson to do a taste test of a berry tea in Portland, and it was fun. But as you may know, he worked for and with the Smith, that is Smith Teas in Portland, that also created Stash Teas, that giant that was bought by the Japanese group. Anyway, Tazo is featured in every Starbucks now, but at the time it was nearly not known about. But they got lucky and got put into Starbucks when Oprah was first doing her cash register point of sale sales on book club. Anyway, so I hosted the taste test for the berries at the focus group facility where I own part of the company and the building. And I've tried to think why that was so satisfying to do that and help Tal, even though he didn't pay me for that. I think he paid me to rent the room, but he did the taste test himself. And it's because I was part of it. I got to belong in the process. And now when I look back, I belong to some of that story because I was part of it. He made me feel like I was a part of it. And I'm pretty sure I tried to sell him on the efficacy of me doing the taste test and not him, since he was part of the ownership group, and that I could put in some protocols for allergies and cleansing one's palate. But if you know your Starbucks history, Tazo Tea is in no small part a part of their success. And their leader at the time I was working with them, Tal, spent enough time with me that I felt like I was there. If my wife was here, she would say, Tal went to Stadium High School, which is my high school. And Stadium High School has done a great job of making their graduates feel like they belong, like they're winners. And their building is really cool and it's been featured in movies and stuff, but don't tell those stadium grads. But the building was made available because the railroad went bankrupt that tried to build it as a luxury hotel. And so it was vacant and they used it for the school. Not winning beginnings. The process of grinding to win can at first feel like failure, exhaustion, or doubt. Like when I wondered why I helped Tal Johnson with Taza Tea at the time, but it makes a cool story in my life and in my past now. I didn't make a bunch of money, but I made a memory. With your time and your toiling, it transforms you into clarity and flow and a deep sense of your impact. You're a winner too and belong in that transformation because of your work and your giving. Imagine a leader at dawn, coffee in hand, pouring their heart into their work. They've leaned into embrace the grind because it leads to something greater. That's what winning feels like when you lean into it. A reward, like McDonald's after the Little League game. You've earned it through your persistence. I have another thing that Little League teaches you. One of the coaches took us to McDonald's. We had two coaches, and I think Mr. Helm was the one who said, make the play, then die. And I think this is a great story of conditioning kids and how we need to condition ourselves for resilience beforehand. A resilience program after mayhem is not a resilience program. To build resilience, you build it first. And what he was trying to do is tell us you may get hit by a ball, it may hurt, but you still should make the play. And then you can die. If it didn't kill you, you can probably make the play. It's kind of funny, but learning to work through a little bit of adversity and trying to help your team win, it's not just about you, it's about the team, it's about the game. It is a perspective that sports gives us. What does winning taste like to you right now? Is it the effort of showing up or the reward of seeing your vision come to life? That feeling like you have made it to courtside with Jack Nicholson for the LA Lakers. I once did a study for Shaq. Yes, that Shaq. And when I tell kids, like when I visit schools to do leadership training or I'm a guest teacher, I get the kids really excited that I work for Shaq. But in reality, I never met Shaq. And I tell the kids I never met him. And I tell them about people that I have met. They don't care. They love Shaq, right? And the study was applying to me at the time. I was working on for my client who was some Intel research guys from Hillsboro, Oregon, but I never got to meet Shaq. And they got to meet Shaq and actually sit courtside at a Laker game. And I learned later that Nike was really paying for a lot of the bills for a potential joint venture that never happened. I was made to feel like I was part of the team, though, even in this process, because I worked with Shaq's assistant. And even though never met Shaq, it seemed like I was winning with Shaq and his assistant. I also like Shaq's vibe with the peace, love, and the dunk net shoe at the time, which kind of dates me how long ago that was. But I got to work with some of the shoe designers. Their names were Pervy, and it was fun. It felt like being part of the team and something current and special. And it was another piece of my story. I used to chase wins in sales and business, but I wasn't present in my relationships, I must admit, or managing stress well at times. I learned from ancient wisdom like Native American traditions, where warriors paused after battle and reconnected with themselves before they entered the camp again and reconnected with their families. We need that balance, but we also live in a world that rewards those who show up fully. Not the overzealous coach yelling at the kids. And I remember a time the kids were little, 9 years old, playing little football things. I don't even know why they had pads because they were so little they couldn't hardly run into each other. And one of the dads was saying, kill him, kill him. And I was thinking, wow, that's overzealous. So that's the overzealous coach that I'm talking about at a kid's game. Really, you're just supposed to be making sports fun for kids at that time, and how winning can be fun. And even losing can be better with a teammate and working together. But the leader who dares to care deeply and strive for excellence, is that you? Are you leaning into the hard work of winning or holding back from the fullness of what you could achieve? Values that anchor winning. Another thing I'd like to talk about. As you may have picked up, I am fascinated by why military leaders often end up as business leaders. Why do military veterans often become exceptional CEOs? Think about it for a moment. They're trained to belong in high stakes moments, winning at communications, strategy, and resilience. A 2025 study by Forbes highlights how veterans scale businesses by focusing on excellence, not just survival, but it's in their values. Think about it. When you go into a camp where the military has been, it says honor, integrity, service before self. That makes them magnetic leaders. They create teams where everyone feels like they belong on the mission. They know their roles. They aren't left guessing. Philippians 2:3-4 reminds us, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count on others more significant than yourselves. This echoes Stoic wisdom from Seneca, who said, giving is not just generosity, it's justice. And the Stoic Marcus Aurelius added, receive without pride. Let's go without attack. These aren't just lofty ideals. They're the foundation of leadership that makes people feel valued and included. We got to value everybody, right? I talk about that all the time. Are you leading with values and giving in a way that makes your team feel like they belong in the victory? I've learned from my Maxwell community that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. When you lead with care, you're not just winning, you're creating a legacy where others claim their place in the spoils of victory. That's the kind of leader you want to be. That's the kind of leader you were meant to be. Gen X and Gen Z, you belong in the C-suite, but you are not likely to get there like previous generations. So pay attention. I'm at the tail end of the boomers, beginning of the Gen Xers. But Gen Xers, this should be your moment. A Wall Street Journal article from yesterday, August 4th, 2025, notes that only 43% of CEOs are in their 50s. This is my prime, while 41% are over 60 boomers, holding the younger generation waiting in line. But you belong there in the leadership. Don't let the Gen Z blank stare, that quiet quitting disengagement, define. My father used to say, I didn't raise a quitter. Show up in person, honor your team, and lift them up. The 2023 McKinsey study showed that younger generations value development. So mentor them while proving you're a winner. Are you showing up fully, ready to claim your place as a leader with influence? Dress sharper, stay longer, say yes to opportunities. Winning is 1% aspiration and 99% perspiration. Until you belong in the joy of victory. You're not just here to lead, You're here to shape the world, to create spaces where everyone feels like they belong in the win. They feel like they belong. That's it. You belong in leadership. You belong in leadership roles, my friends. Where do you feel you belong as a leader today, and how will you step into that victory? Maybe it's a little step out of your comfort zone right now, but step into that victory. Share your thoughts with me, Beau Leadership Group. That's Beau as in BEAU Leadership Group. You can catch me on social media and please follow me, or you can email me, bob@beauleadershipgroup.com. Follow me on TikTok and X or Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening. You belong in this conversation, in leadership, and in the rewards of winning. Keep showing up, keep caring, and let's claim those victories together. Thank you for sharing this episode with your friends and people that you want to feel loved and that you want to have feel like they belong in victory too. Bless your week.